Okay, we're continuing here, Sanhedrin Daf Tzadi Amud Beis. So instead of going through the Gemara Vayta, I just wanted to pick on something over here that we discussed a little bit last week about Rabbi Yehusha ben Channanya. Sholu Reimim as Rabbi Yehusha ben Channanya. The Romans asked Rabbi Yehusha ben Channanya. So the question is like this: who's Rabbi Yehusha ben Channanya? So I had a few questions about him, so I wanted to just get into a little bit about the biography and the details of the life of what Rabbi Yehusha ben Channanya is about. So the question is where to start, because there's at least 10 Gemaras where we have Rabbi Yehusha ben Channanya, Davka b'divrei Agoda, where he's referred to as Rabbi Yehusha ben Channanya. Man she'ein kain. So Rashi says in Nozir that Stam Rabbi Yehusha in the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehusha ben Channanya. So the question is, so we don't always call everybody Ben their father's name, Reb Shimon, Stam Reb Shimon, Reb Shimon Bechai, let's say, right? So we don't always call him Reb Shimon Bechai, we have Stam Reb Shimon all over the place, right? But it struck me a little interesting that in Halacha we almost never have Rabbi Yehusha ben Channanya. It's Stam Rabbi Yehusha. When it comes to Divrei Agoda, he's called Rabbi Yehusha ben Channanya. That's question number one. Question number two, I want to go through just a bunch of Gemaras, nothing to do, not necessarily any kashas to Rutzim, just go through different Gemaras about Rabbi Yehusha ben Channanya and what, a little bit of his story and what he was about. Question number two, which is we're going to focus on a little bit more, is the following. So we know the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that Rabbi Yechon Mezakai Ha'imayna Shvachan Shal Talmidim, and Rabbi Yehusha ben Channanya says Ashrei Eladatay. What's Ashrei Eladatay? To state that his mother, before he was born even, his mother would go around to the Talmidei Chachamim to ask them to bench this uber that this child should vax him to a Talmid Chacham. And then when he was born, so then the mother brought his crib into the Beis Medrash so that he should hear Kidei Sheyishmu Aznav Divrei Torah, that the only thing he should hear is Divrei Torah. So first of all, if you look in the Rav, the exact nusach is not Beis Medrash, it's Beis HaKnesses. Just a side point, we're going to get to that, hopefully. And secondly, this is the question that was bothering me, was that many of these Gemaras, B'divrei Agoda, that we're going to go through, is that he was busy answering and debating with the king, with the Kaisar, even a story with the Kaisar's daughter, all kinds of things that are seemingly outside the Beis Medrash. But if his whole shvacha from Rabbi Yechon Mezakai is Ashrei Eladatay, that when he was growing up, from the time he was born, he was already in the Beis Medrash. So then, did he lose his status of Ashrei Eladatay when he started debating with the kings and handling with them? So, the Pashtus not, but the teretz that I heard was, which in the beginning I wasn't so tzufreden with it, but now it settled on me. I sat with it for a little while. It settled on me a little bit more. And that is that you have to be the right person to go do the hishtadlus. A guy who's never learned anything and he's going to be the spokesperson for Klal Yisrael is pasnished. It's wrong. But you have to have a person who has. If you look in the Rav in the beginning, in Pirkei Avos, the Rav's first thing is that he had Gevaldig Midas Tovos. So he was a pleasant person to be around. So then, and he spoke well, and he knew how to debate, and he knew how to talk to them, and he knew the ins and outs of it. So he was the person that they chose. But it's the one time that I asked, he told the two to Yaakov meeting with Esav, right? Amol, you have to leave the Beis Medrash to go take care of Klal Yisrael. Amol, you have to do things. Amol, you have to meet up with Esav. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in a little bit. But, this was Al Kapan of the question of what was going on. So first, let's just see a few Gemaras. First, we'll just see a few Gemaras of what's going on. So we have a Gemara Chulin. There are two Gemaras on Chulin that he was close to the Kaisar. And we have a Gemara Brachas Daf Nun Vav. Amalek Kaisar Rabbi Yehusha. Amrisi de Chachmisu Tuva. We see that you're very, very smart. Emily Machazinu Bechalma. So the king asked Rabbi Yehusha, what did I see in my dreams? Galantis, we learned this in Haraya. This is the Gemara Brachas. So it's interesting. His Stamad is interesting because it's very similar to what the Raimiyim asked him in this Gemara. Masha Osed Liyos, right? They asked him two questions. They asked him, how does HaKadosh Baruch Hu know what's going to be? And how do you know Tchias HaMeisim, right? How do I know what's going to be? I mean, there's something similar in these questions because I have no idea what's going on in your head. One of the things that's mechusah mibnei adam is masha b'liba shel chaveira. It's not something that's shaykh for people to know. And then we have another Gemara Shabbos, Daf Kuf Yotes, Amalei Kesel Rabbi Yeshua ben Xananya, that the Tavshel Shel Shabbos Reichei Noidif, that the food on Shabbos has a special smell. It smells different than the food from the rest of the week. And there's a Gemara in Hyrrius that he was on a ship together with Rabbi Gamliel. Also a very interesting story over there. And weiter in Chulin, that Amalei Kesel Rabbi Yeshua ben Xananya, like Keichem Ka'ari, you said that Hashem looks like a lion. So Be'ina Dachzi Lelekenu, I wanted to see Hashem. So he showed him the Arya Devei Eloi, and all these kinds of things. And that's not as fascinating Gemara, what that's all talking about in the Gemara of Sabbath Devei Tun and Becheres Tafches. Amalei Keser Rabbi Yeshua ben Xananya, Nachash Lekama Mi'aber Moiled. And, how long after a snake gets mubaris does it give birth? And over there in the Gemara it explains that after this debate, so Rabbi Yeshua ultimately won the debate. It's quite interesting because the Gemara Evren also, like Dafnun Gimel and Daled, that Rabbi Yeshua said that nobody won him in a debate besides the three people. The Vice Daisa was part of Rabbi Yeshua's business over here, was debating people. I mean, it sounds interesting, but Al Kapan, the Shteit in Gemara, we're not going to change things from what it says in the Gemara. So by the Sabbath debate Tunis, he won the debate, and he had to run away from them. So it says that Al Yidei Shem, he was able to fly and suspended himself between Shema and Varetz. There's a lot of Torah and all these things about what exactly the pratim are, and I'm not going to get into all that now. Mitzvah Shem, each one in the right time. At the end of Soita, it says that Mishameser Bishua Batla Eitzel Machshava. So they still too this Nakuda that when Rabbi Yeshua was nifter, it was Batla Eitzel Machshava because he was always the person that was able to speak for Klal Yisrael and debate all the people and answer all the questions everybody had. So when he was nifter, so he didn't have the Yicholos anymore. In Chagiga we have a bunch of Gemaras on Daf Gimel, and then you have another Gemara on Daf Hey. So the Gemara on Daf Hey says that when Rabbi Yeshua was ben Xananya was nifter, Shalu Talmida b'Shah Shamid lePartim Min Ha'olam, who's going to be the one to answer all our questions? Because the Goyim are still going to bother us with questions. Why do you assume that when you're not around anymore, the Goyim are all of a sudden going to stop? So Amar Lehem, he said to them, of the Eitzim Ibanim Nisricha Chachmasa, that the children are going to lose the Eitzim, they're going to lose their Chachma. I mean, it was a shtickle like Zel Umazeh, he was answering them, that when I'm not around anymore, so they're not going to have so many questions to, they're not going to have too many questions, so you're not going to need to be busy with the answers. All right, so I want to get into, there's two more basic nekudas that I want to get into. It's really three, maybe we'll see exactly what's going on over here. So first and foremost, we have a Gemara Gittin Daf Nun Ches. Very interesting story, very interesting Gemara. Tan Rabbanon, Ma'aser Rabbi Yeshua ben Xananya, Sheholach Lekrach Godel Sheberoimi. He went to the big city in Rome. Amr Lei, they told him, Tinak Echad Yesh Bebeis HaAsurim. There's a child in the prison over here, Yefei Einayim, beautiful eyes, Tevrei, looks very good, Kusaisav, Sturis Le'Tatalim, nice long curly hair. Holach ve'omar al Pesach Beis HaAsurim. He stood at the entrance of the jail. Omar minosan l'mashisa Yankov Yisrael l'beizizim. So he was basically bemoaning the fact that such a beautiful Yiddish child would be living in such horrible conditions. So he says that why did Yaakov was zeichetres Yisrael l'beizizim, that he was locked up in jail. So Ona oise tinik ve'omar. So the tinik answered him with another pasuk, Halei Hashem zu chatanuloi. We sinned to Hashem, and we didn't want to go in his ways. And we didn't want to listen to his Torah. So Omar, Rabbi Yeshua says, Muftachani boisha meira herabi Yisrael. Rabbi Yeshua says that Muftachani, that this person, this young child, is going to be a meira herabi Yisrael. So we know the Ben Yehoyada in Psachim, also similar lashon, that the Gemara said of him, Muftachani, that is going to be a meira herabi Yisrael. So in fact, the Ben Yehoyada, I understand something. Where he's going to be a meira herabi for Goyim. Avadi is going to be a meira herabi for Yisrael. What's the thing? So he says there's two types of Talmidei Chachamim. There's a kind of Talmid Chacham that he sits in his winkel and he learns Yom V'Layla, and maybe people know about him, maybe people don't. But for the most part, he goes unknown. Masha'inkin, there's other people that their hara is Yetzel L'Chol Yisrael, that they're a person that also wants to sit in their small winkel and learn, but they just can't, right? So the way I always say it over, as I tell it to this Maisa, the Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zechron Lavracha said about Reb Zundel Kreuzer, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu must appreciate Reb Zundel's Torah more than mine. So why? Because Reb Zundel Kreuzer is a person who knows called Torah Kula, sits and learns in Yerushalayim. Who knows about him? How many people heard of him? Right? Almost nobody. Right? Reb Chaim, who didn't hear Reb Chaim? Everyone heard Reb Chaim. So everyone goes to Reb Chaim. Right? But Reb Zundel, people leave him alone. People don't bother him as much. Hey, Seif Yamav, he became a little more famous. People started going to him. But it was only ready when he was very old. When he was younger, he was literally unknown. A man has svarim on, I think, the entire Shas, and the entire Chumash, and Yom Tovim, and the entire Mishnah Berurah plus. I mean, we're talking about somebody who has Gefil whole Svarim that he wrote. That's just what he wrote. And Mistama, he learned a little more than that. Right? So that's the Pshat in Rabbi Yisrael. There's certain hashgacha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants certain people to be, that this one should be the Managador, this one should be, he's a Pesach, that he should paskin shaylas for Klal Yisrael. So certain people, they are people that everybody knows what their psak halacha is. Everybody knows what their shitas are in halacha. And other people, they're relatively unknown people. It doesn't make their Torah value any less. The Torah is the same. Maybe the guy sitting in the corner has even better Torah for all you know, but it's just not known. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mesabev sivuvim that it should be dafka this way. We don't know the cheshbon shamayla, but this is what it is. Zok the Gemara weiter. So Yeshua is still talking, and he says, he says, I'm going to be paid to this child from jail no matter how much money they ask. Omru, so Gemara says, he says he didn't leave there until he was able to be paid them with a lot of money. And it was a short while later until this child started taka paskening shaylas. And who was it? Umon Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. It was Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. Rabbi Shmuel ben Xananya was matzel Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. Right, we know Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha was the Gemara Brachas Dav Zayin, right? Tanya Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha, right? Pamachas nechnasti lahaktik teres l'fnei l'fnim. So over there was a shayla who this Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha was. It could be there were two of them, it could be there were three of them even. It's not so simple exactly. Fine, but the basic kasha is on this Gemara. How could you be paid to this child? B'chamam shaba'olam. The halacha in Pidyon Shvuyim is that you're not paid on somebody from Yosef Mikdei Demem, more than he's worth. So how is he able to be paid them? Omer l'chara the teretz in Mavur in the Gemara because he says that once he said that he's going to be a Moir HaRabbi Yisrael. So Torah hatnish can value. You have to. At all costs, you have to be part of this kid. He's going to be a Moir HaRabbi Yisrael. He's going to be a Talmid Chacham. We've got to do whatever we can to make sure that we're going to bring this guy back to Bismarck, get this kid out of jail. So that's the psak. Okay.
Moira means like a decision, right?
Psak, yeah.
And Moira means what, a leader?
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. State in Svarim that Shmuel ben Elisha was from the Neshama of Yosef HaTzadik. There's also in jail. Very similar kind of story. And meaning. I guess did he per se do anything wrong that he ended up in jail? No, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted him to be that way. This kid was just by the fact that he was Jewish, they threw him into jail. They didn't do anything wrong. So it's similar to what Yosef HaTzadik was going through. As they state this farm. The question is like this: why is dafka? I mean, it's not so much a question. I mean, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, understands everything. It's it's not up to us, but we could say a little bit that what's pshat Rabbi Shimon Hanania dafka was the one that was taking him out of jail. So it's mavur in this Gemara, and it's mavur elsewhere that Shmuel ben Elisha was beautiful. He had a beautiful look. He looked beautiful. He was a stunning person. Say such a thing, but as I state, right in this Gemara, it said that he saw a kid that was yefei nayim v'tayroyik v'yisaysev sturs l'talim. He looked very good. But it's interesting because it's mavur by Yeshua ben Xananya mamish fakert. The Gemara in Tainas Dav Zayin and the Dorim Dav Nun says he was talking to the daughter of the Kesar. This is what I was referring to when I said before that he was talking to the daughter of the Kesar. So the daughter of the king. So she said to him, Ei chachma mefayar b'kli mechur. There's such beautiful wisdom in an ugly kli. He was referring to Yeshua ben Xananya. It didn't look so handsome. So Amalo, so he asked her, Avicha rami chamra b'mani the pachra? He said, how does your father store wine? In the kalim made out of pottery? What should we put them in if not for pottery? I mean, that's how you have to preserve wine. Pottery. Klicheres. Omalo, he said to her, Atun dechashvisu rama b'mani dava v'kaspa. So why should you put it in very, very cheap, junky kalim? Put it in gold and silver. So Azal v'amalei lavua. So she goes and she tells her father that the rami lechamer b'mani dava v'kaspa, to put the wine in kalim of gold and silver. What do you think happened to the wine? Gas boiled, turned into vinegar, v'takif. It went bad. Also Ramule. So they told him that, they told the king that his wine went bad. Who told you to do such a silly thing, to put the wine in these kelim? So he says, Rabbi Shimon Hanania, you're a wise man. So Karyos, calls him in. Why did you tell it to do such a silly thing? The same thing that she told me. What did she tell him? That you're an ugly person, and you have such beautiful chachma, but you're an ugly person. So you see, it's not totally zebazeh. A person could be beautiful, and he could have beautiful chachma. A person could not be beautiful, and not have beautiful chachma. And at the same time, a person could be beautiful, and or not be beautiful. And also, it's either way. It's not necessarily one causing the other. So Amri Law, they said, but she said, but you have a lot of beautiful, handsome Talmidei Chachamim also that are very learned. So what's pshat that you're so, not so handsome? See, he says,
I never heard this last part.
it's a Gemara Tainus in Dav Zayin. So you have a son of Tvei, you have a Gemiri. He said if they would have been worse, they would have been much more learned. So I just want to share a Maisa, it's brought down.
Oh, he took us up that.
Yeah, there's a different, the Gemara Nedorim, it's a little bit shorter maybe, but the Gemara Nedorim, it's not in such difficult Aramaic Lashon, it's more in Lashon Kodesh, the story. It's much easier to read. It's brought down more like a Brisa than in Lashon Gemara. Fine. Kiyadua, the Lavush wrote his Sefer because of the following story. I probably shared it with you before, but it's a very interesting story. The Lavush, Kiyadua, was a very, very handsome person, and Isha was teveh him for an Avera. And he tried to run away from her. And he chapped at the only place that he was able to, and he wore very bachavdik clothing. And the only place that he's able to run away from this Isha was to jump into an outhouse, into the ground. So he said, I'm not being mizana with this Isha, nothing doing, and he jumped straight into the pit in the ground. And all his, it was an outhouse, the base kise, it was full of tzayil, a couple kinds of nice smelling things, shmak. Anyway, so, this lady obviously left because, this guy's doing crazy things. He's going all the way there. He's not interested. Okay, fine. Baruch Hashem, he's able to save himself. He's able to match himself. He was mispalel that his children for 10 generations should be ugly. He says the only reason why she was teveh me for an aver is because I look so beautiful. If I don't look beautiful, then she's not going to bother me. And that's why his sefer is called Lavush, is because it's the Lavush. It's Al Shem, all the clothing to be masked this nice. If I'm not mistaken, the story is brought down in the Hakdam to the Lavush, and that's why it's called that. Fine. In addition to the story, I saw brought in a few places that there was in one of the yeshivas in Hungary, right before World War II, a very young but outstandingly handsome young boy came to yeshiva, and he was a Shem Daber, he was a Masmid, and he was very good in learning and whatever. Alomailas. Kitza was Bein Azmanim or off Shabbos or whatever it was. His father came to pick him up. His father, Mamish, looked like, his nose was like bent out of shape and his face was like twisted. And they're trying to figure out, like, how could such a not good-looking person have a child that Mamish, his face shines? So I don't know who said this, but they say that person was the father was the 10th generation of the Lavush, that he said that 10 generations shouldn't be handsome, and he was the 11th. So he was like chayza to that beauty of the original.
Yeah, I think you saw the story.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay.
I don't think I chopped it though.
Oh, but now you
chop.
have.
I chopped the background, like the outhouse.
Yeah, fine. Okay, let's get into now what Rabbi Yechanan said about Rabbi Yechanan Mazaka. I said about Rabbi Shimon Chanan. There's actually a lot of time. Yes, I'm going to read the lashon of the Rav in Pirkei Avos. Mu'usha b'midas tayvus, that he was full of midas tayvus. Achakala olam amrim alav asher misha yaladatay. That until everybody said about him that praises the mother that gave him birth to him. Yeshayimim al shem shehi garm leiliyas chacham, because she was the one that caused him to be a chacham. Shahisa machzeres al kol batei midrashos shebeira. She went around to all the batei midrashos in her city. V'oimeres lahem b'bakash michem bikshu racham al uber hazeh shebemeyai sheyi chacham. That you should be mevakish rachamim on this uber, on this child that's going to be born, that he should be a chacham. She knew he was going to be a boy. They should be a chacham anyway.
Oh, so meaning she was dying for a boy. It sounds like.
Right.
It sounds like it's It's included, huh?
Yeah. No, it's interesting because after a certain point, after 40 days, you can't daven that it should be a boy or a girl because it's already late. Whatever, there are these kind of shalos. I was grabbing a gas something at night here recently. This shmooze of 40 days. Fine. Anyways. From the day he was born, she never took his crib out of the Bismedrash. That his ears should only hear the Torah. It's quite interesting. Going back to Bishmal ben Elisha, this kid in this Maisa in jail, that Bishmal Hanania took out of jail. So it's a very, very long story. We can't get into it now. It's brought in the Sefer Shari Dura, which is an early Pesach on Hilchos Yeridea, that says a whole reason why Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha was so beautiful. It was a specific story. Basically, his parents, had many children. They all died, and she was mispaled to have a child, and all kinds of nisyonis for her to keep, to keep this child b'kedusha v'tara. And before the child was born, for her herself to keep b'kedusha v'tara. And L'maisa, she had Akash Baruch Hu gave her tremendous nisyonis, and she was misgabriel in the nisyonis. So because of that, so he was zeichet to be this beautiful, and he was also zeichet state over there that he was also zeichet to have that the Malachim, he had shaykhs to the Malachim, and we have in the Gemara even that he would talk to the Malachim, and the Malachim would talk to him, and he had shemus, and he was busy going up and down, and we know from the Asar Malchus also, we mentioned it, that that he was, there were 10 Tanoim. It's a big question exactly if they were all at the same time, or it was all different periods, but there were 10, there's a lot of Torah on this, but there were 10 Tanoim Kedoshim that were killed by the Romans to be mechaper on the Shvatim for Mechirus Yosef. So it's a little shaykh.
What does that mean?
Asara, 10 Harugei Malchus, killed by the king, by the Romans.
All right, I know this. We said Yom Kippur.
We said Yom Kippur, we said in Tisha B'Av. Okay, so let's get into a little bit this question that we asked before. That if the whole Matorah, the whole point of why his mother brought him into the Beis Medrash was Kadesh Yishma Oznav Divrei Torah. So then why is he in the Beis HaKesar? Why is he so busy talking to the daughter, talking to him, and all these kinds of questions? So the Gemara says in Moed Katan, Tezayin Amud Beis, Kolo Isik B'Torah Mibifnim, Terasa Machrezes Alof Mibachutz. A person who is Isik B'Torah, in private, B'Tznius, and I'm using that word specifically as I'll get to in a minute, so then then the Torah announces for this person on the outside, similar to what we were talking about before, that there are some people that for whatever reason, their Torah is not in this person, doesn't become famous, just use regular simple terms, and there are people where their Torah doesn't become well-known and famous.
And shown from the outside are two different things, no?
Right, so there's a shaila in...
shown from the outside,
yeah.
If you're inside, you have...
Yeah. So we're going to get to it. We're going to talk about that.
Like a whole next...
Right, but what I mean is that he should be well known. That him and his Torah should be well known. Much like we were talking about before. It's a big machlokes there in the Gemara in Moed Katan. It's a big shmooze. There's a story. So Reb held, the other ones held not. It's a whole long shmooze. Not for now, but that's where this Gemara is coming from. That this is the sheet of Reb Chia of Kaloisik Batermi B'Pnim Teras Machrez Alav B'Chutz. Right. So it's clear that his mother didn't want him to hear anything else besides the Torah. Right?
Yeah. So
it's interesting that why does mother want so badly that he should only hear the Torah, right? So we know Tosfos says in Ksubis by Rabbeinu HaKadosh that he says that he wasn't an enemy. So Tosfos brings a medrash. It's a shayla if we have this medrash or not, but it says over there that before a person's mispalish yichnusu Torah l'seich meyav, that the Torah should go into his stomach, he should be mispalish yichnusu madanim l'seich meyav. He should be mispalish that all the pleasures of the world don't go into his stomach because they cancel each other out. If you're learning, you can't be busy with the shtiyot of the Welt or the madanim of the Welt, and if you're busy with the madanim, you're not going to be shaykh the Torah.
Madanim means pleasures.
Madanim, yeah. The Rishiva Zal has a whole mimer what madanim means, but yeah, for our purposes, it means pleasures.
It's for a different story.
It's for Purim. We'll get to that. Vayelach Agog Madonis. That's that Agog. Purim time. I will when we get there. Mahalchan before Hanukkah, right?
We're having a thing on Purim, no? A mimer.
What's the shayla? When right now?
No, we're gonna all pack into your place.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna shell.
Right, but my nakud is I want to be medayik. I want to be medayik in the lashon hazeh. I want to be medayik like this. That somebody who's isik b'Torah mi b'fnim Meaning that the Torah went directly into him because he was a child, he was a baby. He wasn't Isaac Torah, he wasn't sitting there learning with everybody, right? So what was going on over there? He was a baby when he was in the Beis Medrash, right? So the Torah went straight into his ears, went into Bifnim. So I'm going to stop with this question that we're handling now, and we'll just talk about this nakuda of when he was a baby that he was brought into Beis Medrash. So there's a Gemara like this. So the Gemara Chagiga with a whole Maisa, and it goes like this: Ton Rabbonim Chagiga Dav Gimel Amud Aleph. Maisa Reb Yechon ben Broika, Reb Loza ben Chisma, Sheholuchu lahakbil Pnei Reb Yeshua bePekin. They went to Pekin to be Makabel Pnei Reb Yeshua. Reb Yeshua was in Pekin, so they went to be Makabel Panim. So Shaila, if this was Bizman Shabbos Hamikdash Kayam, is there a chiyuv to go to your Rebbe even Bizman Hazed? There is a chiyuv. There isn't a chiyuv. There's no Yehuda about it. It's a whole Shaila. Not for now. So Amar Lahem, Ma Chiddush Hoy beBeis Medrash Hayom. So Reb Yeshua asked them, what was the chiddush in the Beis Medrash today? Amar Lay, they told him, Talmidecha anu. We are your Talmidim. Umeimecha anu shaisim. And we are drinking your water. So I mean, we're coming to hear from the Rebbe. Don't ask us for Dvar Torah. The Rebbe should say Dvar Torah. Why,
That's such a good rip.
Yeah.
That's such a good comeback.
Amar Lahem, he says to them, Afal Pikeni Efshel leBeis Medrash b'lo chiddush. So he tells them that Afal Pikein, it's Efshel for Beis Medrash to not have a chiddush. So Shabbos Shel Mihoisa, whose turn was it to give the drasha? Shabbos Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. It was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's turn. What was the Divrei Hagodah that he darshened? Amr Leba Parshas Hakel. He was talking about Hakel, not Hakel that the people did now. The Hakel in the Beis Hamikdash.
What's Hakel?
So Hakel is the mitzvah at the end of Shemitah that the Gemara is going to explain what it is. But basically, the Melech reads the Torah, or maybe it's just Mishnah Torah, to the entire Klal Yisrael in the Beis Hamikdash. It was a special mitzvah. I mean, I've had that every Yom Tov to the mitzvah Lil Regel, which is that's how it comes into this Gemara, because the Gemara is talking about Lil Regel. So once it's Lil Regel, so we get into Hakel, so we get into all these things. So
it was Shemitah.
It was after Shemitah. Umad Darashba. So what did Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah darshan? So he says, Hakel es ha'om ha'anoshim ha'anoshim ha'ataf. So you have to gather together the nation, the men, the women, and the children. Im anoshim boim, lilmoid. Noshim bois l'shmoya. So the men come to learn. The women come to hear. Right? They may not understand, but at least that they should hear what's going on. Taf lomabon. So why do the children come? Because they lead them to bring that they should get, the people should bring them should get schar. There's a lot of Torah on this. We're not going to get into that now. Amalahem, so Yeshua says to them, "My goal is tova ha'isa b'yedchem." You had such a beautiful. My goal is a pearl or a diamond. He said you had such a beautiful jewel to share. Ha'isa b'yedchem b'kasham labdam mimeni, and you didn't want to share with me. You wanted me to lose this. So you have to say what's going on. You have to say the Vartim Spanish. Even a Rebbe who's an older person, he could zecher be nana from the Divrei Torah. So they stell sue. Everybody stell sue and just sound to zach like this. So first of all, let's just talk about a little bit on a kuda. What is Shabbos Shalmi business? Well, because it's an egel a little bit what we're going to talk now. So, Bekitza, so given a Talmud, the Gemara Brachas on Chav Zayin with Beis, the Gemara says the tefillas arvis rishus, right? So everybody hears this, gets excited. Oh, you don't have to daven Ma'ariv. No, it's not what it means. It says it means that if you're busy with the other mitzvahs and you miss Ma'ariv, you don't have to make it up. Mashenk and the other tefillas, then you would have to. Okay, so there was a shayla that a Talmud came and asked. It was a Rishon Gamliel. He asked them, "Who's the halacha like? Is it a rishus or a chayva?" So he says rishus, he says chayva. Then a whole debate ensued, and they wanted to throw Ram Gamliel.
Was the guy Ma'ariv?
Yeah, and they wanted to throw Ram Gamliel. A whole ma'isa then. And then they who should be, so they needed a new Rosh Hashiva. Who should take over in Gamliel? So Yeshua couldn't take over in Gamliel because he was the Av Bezdin. So they said maybe they should appoint Rabbi Kiva. He says he doesn't have Schus Avos because he was from Gerim. So maybe this one, he was too old. So who did they pick? They picked Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, right? So who was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? So he was 18 years old, right? He said, Kiven Shivim Shana. But he wasn't Shivim Shana, right? Because he was only 18. Yerushalmi says he was 16, right? We saved this before the Pesach Seder. We talked about Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, right? For this word, without getting into the whole shmuz. But Kitza, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says Ezel va'amlich ba'anshe beisi. He had to ask his wife for permission to become Rosh Hashiva. Wow, yeah. So he said, "That's a Gemara. You can't make this stuff up."
Rosh
so
he
was going to be the Rosh Hashiva of the yeshiva in Bavel.
Oh.
So he says, maybe it's in Israel actually. So he says, so the wife gave him Rishus, and he wakes up the next morning with a big white beard. Beautiful, and he's Rosh Hashiva. Now, Rabbi Gamliel says, so let me ask you, Shiloh, right? Big debate in yeshiva, right? It's not the first time in the world that this happened. A big debate in yeshiva, they don't like the Rosh Hashiva Klali. They throw stuff at him, Agan Samasa, they want him out, right? The Bokum make him Achod, they want him out. What does the Rosh Hashiva do? Where does the Rosh Hashiva go? If you were this Rosh Hashiva, where would you go?
Go?
Where would you go? You live in Spanish, you fly out of town, you move to Lakewood. I don't know what you would do. You get out of here.
Really?
If they're Mavazi you Barabim in front of everybody like this, of course you would get out of there. Why would you stick around? He says, Dr. Gemara, that Rabbi Gamliel never left the Bismedrash. He would never miss the Bismedrash at all. But they made up, the Pshara was like this. The Pshara was, before the Pshara, Rabbi Elazar ben Azar, Rabbi Gamliel was very makbid that only somebody that's Toichei Kebaroi can come into the Bismedrash. Toichei Kebaroi means that a person's inside is the same as his outside. Meaning that if you look from on the outside, it has to match with what your pneumius is. And if you're not a pneumistic person, meaning that your Toichei is not Kebaroi, he would not allow you to come into the Bismedrash. Yep. How did he know? Right. So how did he know? So the Gemara says, no, not allowed.
You have to be.
He had a shomer HaPesach, and the shomer HaPesach would test you for a long time till you would be able to verify and clarify that this person was roi, that he was toichei kebaroi.
What's the term?
Toichei, his insides, kebaroi, like the outside. Mm-hmm. Baroi is like lashon, like brisa.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what's brisa?
Well, there's Mishnah and a brisa. Brisa was what was learned outside the regular Sidrei Yeshiva. Fine. Al Kaponim, when Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah became Rosh Hashiva,
like here, outside the regular Sidrei.
Yeah. When Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah became Rosh Hashiva, it says that when you toisfu Arba Meyas Hasalim, there were 400 benches of people that came to this medrash. So the question is, why does the Gemara say there's 400 benches? Just say 400 people, or say 800 people. I don't know, 600 people, right? Because you don't want to say about all the people that were empty inside. They also came to the medrash. So you don't want to talk about how many talmidim you have. It's not worth anything, right? These people don't have, they're not Taichei Kabaris. They're not Baalei Madrega, right? So he said, how many seats opened up? Lamaisa, it could be that the machlekes between Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and Gamliel, what they were arguing about was, how does a guy become Taichei Kabarai? You got to give him a chance. If you don't give him a chance, then he doesn't come in. This is a separate shmooze where, the Sfarim discussed this. Fine. And then it says that they made a pshara. The Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was darshan 1 week shir klali on Shabbos, and Rabbi Gamliel had the 3 weeks out of the month. So when the Gemara here in Chagiga says Shabbos shal mi hoisa, so who darshan that week? Was it Rabbi Gamliel's week or was it Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's week? That's what Yehושע was asking. Rabbi Yehושע wasn't part of this. He was in Pekin. He wasn't there.
He was what?
He was in Pekin. Pekin was a town. I agree to think that the Chashmonaim were busy in Pekin also. Could be. Maybe there was Maidin. I don't remember. Anyways, Al Kaponim, that's what... The Hanukkah, come on.
Chashmonaim, that's the family...
Yeah.
What? I know they were a mishpacha.
They were Matisyahu and Ben Yechel and Kohen Gadol Chashmonaim Yevanu. That was who they were.
So
they fought Yevanu.
Like
yeah. They were Kehanim that fought Yevanu.
Yeah.
So over here it says.
So what? Okay, fine. Wait. So only like modern people say like Maccabees. What is that? So
Maccabees could be. I'm not 100% clear in it.
I never heard it. I always heard Chashmonaim.
Right. So Maccabee was the slogan, so to speak, for their army, because it stands for Milchama Be'elam Hashem.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and not only that, but it also stands for Baruch Kved Hashem Imkaimai. Right, that nobody will tell you, besides for me.
Wait.
It's not an order. Rosh Hashanah don't always have to work in order most of the time. I mean, many times.
This is from you, meaning it's
no, it's not for me.
You made it up.
I didn't make it up. One of the Munkach Rebbes, I think, was the Darkei Tshuva. He was a Munkach Rebbe before the Merchas Elazar. So he wrote a sefer, 102 or 107 different shtiklach Torah, going through what Maccabee, Rosh Hashanah, Hashem, or Baruch Kved Hashem Imkaim have to do with anything. I have to do with Hanukkah. It's a fascinating sefer to see. 102 shtiklach Torah. 102 shtiklach Torah. Yeah, 102 shtiklach Torah on this nakuda of why Maccabee is Hashem or Baruch Kved Hashem Imkaim, both. It's a beautiful sefer. We'll get to it when we get closer to Hanukkah.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, another 3.5 weeks.
Almost there.
Yeah, of course. It's almost Purim too. Anyways, the kid to the Gemara says in...
It's almost Mashiach.
Mashiach is tomorrow.
Right.
Amram Gamliel, so the Gemara says in brachas like this. Amram Gamliel. Hoil v'hochi hava ezel v'afaisi l'Reb Yeshua. Being that this is what happened, that they wanted to overthrow me, and Reb Yeshua, everybody got schlepped into this. So he wanted to be mefais Reb Yeshua. He wanted to make him feel good. He wanted to apologize to him, so to speak. Kimatu lebeisei, so when Gamliel came to Reb Yeshua's house, chizinu, this is the Gemara brachas, chovches. Chizinu la'ashisa de beisei de meshachron. He saw the walls of Reb Yeshua's house were dark, they were black. Amar le'mei koislei beisecha nikasha pechomi ata. From the walls of your house, you look like you're a coal miner. What are you telling him? He's Rosh Hashiva. You don't tell him.
Meaning the walls are the color black?
Yeah. So why were they? Because he was very poor. So he was burning a lot of coal to keep his house warm. So there's a haftarah that we read on Shabbos Chanukah.
How did other people burn?
I don't know, but this is what it says.
Yeah.
But Rabbi Yeshua's house was specifically black, as I state. So there's a haftarah that we learn Shabbos Chanukah in Zechariah, that there was a story with Yeshua Kohen Gadol, and Hashem tells him to take off the begadim tzayim. We spoke about this different time in Chanukah.
Tzayim
is dirty, right? So he tells him to take off the begadim tzayim. So the pasuk says, "Haloize ud mutzol me'esh." This is a spit that was saved from the fire. So the Svarim tell too over here that Rabbi Yeshua ben Xananya, who we're talking about, he was from the neshama of this Rabbi Yeshua, of this Yeshua Kohen Gadol, because he said he was pechamiata, he was shaykh to the coals and to the burnt stuff. So he was a ud mutal me'esh, he was something that was snatched out of the fire. So that's also going to be black. That's the shaykh is a little bit over here also. And there's another Gemara about this that in Chagiga it says that miyad halach Rabbi Yeshua v'nishtatech al kivrei Beit Shammai. That right away, whatever the story was, after another machlekes, Rabbi Yeshua went and he was mispaled by the kever of kivrei Beit Shammai. Omar nanesi lechem atzmes Beit Shammai, and he says that the bones of Beit Shammai should answer him. And Omru kol yamav hushchu shino mepnei Tani Yosef. And the Gemara says that because he didn't eat, his teeth turned black from his tanesim. Or another gears in the Gemara is hushchu panav, right? So it would stem very good to
his face?
Yeah, that his face got black. So it would stem very good with what we're saying there is pechamiata, and also that the Keser told Rabbi Yeshua ben Xananya that it's terem the fayar b'klemachur, right? Doesn't look pleasant, doesn't look nice. And the Rush in the Durham Grad says that b'klemachur is shachar, that his face was black. So state in the Gemara Sanhedrin that Nebuchadnezzar asked Yeshua Kohen Gadol, sheyedeahu shehu tzaddik. So when he was thrown into the fire, whatever the story was over there, so he got burnt a little bit. The fire didn't touch him at all. So Yeshua Kohen Gadol answered him that being that he was together with Rishoim, so then his begadim got a little bit burnt. And in Pirkei Avos, Yeshua says, "Ezu derech tova sheyidbak ba ha'odam is chaver tov." Right? So he said chaver tov to Misak in this, that he's with other people that weren't so tov. Okay. I'll go upon him. This is not so much Negeh. Well, we want to talk about this. Stam interessante Sache. Okay. So, continuation of the Shmuas of what we were saying until now is as follows. So, again, Reb Elazar ben Azarias, they came to Rabbi Yechon ben Berka and Reb Elazar Chismo, they come to Rabbi Yeshua ben Xananya, and he asked them, Machid Shrei B'Smeir Shayim. So he says, we're the Talmidim, we want to hear from the Rebbe. So the Rebbe says, En B'Smeir Shayim Chiddush. So what he tells him the shmuz about Hakel, right? So everybody's busy with why the Tav come. The men come, the women come, the children. Why should children come? Right? They're not part of anything. So it's a big shaila in the Paiskim if this means babies, if this means even some Rishonim say we're not talking about little kids. We're talking about higil chinuch, shelo higil chinuch. I got into shaila back and forth. Everybody says a different term, but the point is like this. That there's a Yerushalmi that they bring over here that says that Ro Reb Daisa Rabbi Yeshua. Reb Daisa saw Rabbi Yeshua, Omar, Zachar ani shahoyse imay mevia arisasel beis hamedrash k'dei sheyizdabku ozna v'divrei Torah. That Reb Daisa said about Rabbi Yeshua that he remembers that his mother used to bring him, like we saw in the Rav in Pirkei Avos. Rabbi Yeshua bekasham la'abda mimeni sheli meir hamaymer k'magol tev l'bala shkenim yosas akain. Oh, this is the Meshech Chochmah writes this. Meshech Chochmah, I saw Meshech Chochmah, I just didn't chap what the Meshech Chochmah was saying. Okay, now it makes sense. So he says in our Gemara Chagiga, he says that you had a Margolis Tova and you big shalabda mimeni. You wanted me to lose out the Margolis Tova that what? So he says you wanted me to miss this vart. He was upset at me. He wanted me to miss this vart. Why would Rabbi Yeshua be so upset if he misses this vart? Right? You can't necessarily hear every single vart that's said in this medrash. But the pshat is that this vart is Rabbi Yeshua himself. Why did the taf come? Right? That was similar to that's exactly what Rabbi Yeshua's mother did. Rabbi Yeshua's mother brought him to the medrash. Right? So that's a little bit of what I want to talk about. So many different people bring it from many different places. So Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and here they bring it from other people, and here they bring it from the Margolis Hayam, Reb Margolis, all kinds of different zachen. But many times in the Mishnayos we have the Rabbi Yeshua says, "Shamati ve'inli lefarish," or "Kach shamati," or "Ad shabar bekiva v'amani afarish." So what's all this shamati, kach shamati, chayrut amod nazar to say shamati? Who did you hear it from? You don't remember? You woke up and somebody was whispering it in the middle of the night. It's like, what was the shamati? So this is what Reb Margolis writes. And I saw Reb Chaim Kanievsky says this, and I have to say this also. Yitachin kishmuois of elu hein me'oisa hagil shahilicha imay arisasil beis hakneses k'dei sheidavku oznan b'divrei Torah. Meaning he heard a lot of divrei Torah when he was a baby, and he remembered a lot of the Torah that he heard when he was a baby, but he didn't necessarily understand, or he didn't know exactly what the context of these divrei Torah were. Mela, now he was in his year, and his Rebbe saying something. So he says, "Oh, now it makes sense. Shamati, I heard this. When did you hear this? 40 years ago, when I was 2 months old." He remembered everything he learned over there. So he'll ask, "Hi, how could you remember when you're 2 days from when you were so little?" This is not a pella. It's pashut. I recognize the nurse, the midwife that helped my mother give birth to me. That from the time he was born, he already recognized what was going on. He remembered people. Rabbi Shimon Levi remembered his bris. He remembered the moil. Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Yechanan also said that he remembers the women that were helping his mother around also. Yeah. So so we see that Rabbi Yeshua was able to remember all the Torah that he learned b'meimai. So when they started telling him a shtickle Torah about the taf lam hem ba'em, so he said, "I have to hear this Torah. This story about the taf lam hem ba'em, this story was about me, because his mother would always bring him to the Beis Medrash." So so they bring this to the Pnei Menachem said it, and we hear this to bring from here, and I saw that B'Shem Reb Chaim Kanievsky. So I'll go upon everybody says this. So somebody said over a Maisa that the Tzemach Tzedek one time said over the Maimer that the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, said over by his bris.
Wow, wait, Baal Tanya said
by his anikel's bris.
Which was
the Tzemach Tzedek. Was his anikel.
So he was also.
Baal
Tanya was the first.
Right, Baal Tanya was first, then was the Middle Rebbe, and then was the Tzemach Tzedek. It was the third. So, the Tzemach Tzedek said over the Baal Tanya's drasha that the Baal Tanya gave by the Tzemach Tzedek's bris. So he said that it's shaykh that the Tzemach Tzedek had Ruach HaKodesh to understand it, but Yeshua holds that in mashkichim babaskel, because Torah la b'shamayim he. So Elamai he taka remembers it. It's much better than we were saying before. It's not al Ruach HaKodesh because he taka remembers it. That's Rabbi Yeshua. I'll go upon him. So that's really the Torah over here with what's going on with this business over here. Okay, back to our The one quick word. So the nusach of the Gemara was that his mother brought him to the Beis HaKnesses.
Right.
Fragt Rav Minsky Rebbe, why do you go to the Beis HaKnesses? Bring him to the Beis Medrash. Where do you learn? In the Beis Knesset or Beis Medrash? The Gemara Megillah says, what's more chashuv, Beis Knesset or Beis Medrash?
They'll be like, you learn or you down, you down where you learn. Okay, yeah.
Hakol shtuyot. The Gemara says in Megillah that a Beis Medrash is more chashuv than a Beis Knesset. A Beis Knesset is a place mokum yuchad l'tefillah. A Beis Medrash is a mokum shemegadnu by Torah. Right?
No, don't say that.
So maybe both, but the Ikr mokum Torah is not in the Beis Knesset, it's in the Beis Medrash. So why is he bringing him to the Beis Knesset, not to the Beis Medrash? Kach hikche Admon min Minsk das Yankiv Perlas Chernel Brocha. So he said like this. He said if he was a baby, nicht verstanden. If he was a baby, he couldn't understand. Right? I mean, Kafir, what we're saying now is muchach that he did understand. Let's talk about a regular baby that Taka doesn't understand. Without all this Torah that we just said that he did understand. Right? So in order to be Mekayim, the mitzvah of Torah Shabbat Peh, we hold, all poskim hold, that you have to understand what you're talking about. Kriyas HaTorah, on the other hand, is Torah Shebiksav. Torah Shebiksav, you don't have to understand. Many poskim hold. Torah Shebiksav is automatic. You're yotze l'chiva Talmud Torah even if you don't understand it. So she would bring him dafka by Kriyas HaTorah so that he should be able to understand. Okay, it doesn't spin mamash everything they were saying.
Even though he doesn't understand.
Right. Right. So he should be able to be mekayim in the midst of Talmud Torah even on the side that he doesn't understand. Okay.
Like by laning.
Right. Right. I mean, it could be that in those days that they would learn that a lot of the Torah that was happening was from Sifrei Torah also. Right? To do that the Goyin B'Soif Yamav, he would read from a Sefer Torah and he would point out all the Torah Shabbat Peh that comes in Torah Shabbat Ksav.
That's obviously not so easy to do.
If you're the Goyin, then that is what you do. That is what the Torah is, right? There's a big avodah the avodah of Torah Shabbat Peh is to ultimately is to understand the Torah Shabbat Ksav, and that's what it's all about. All right, so let's get back into this back to our original question that we asked is what's pshat in this ma'isa? You know that kol isik b'Torah mi b'fnim is terasa machras lav mi b'chutz. Right, so my ha'ara right away was that the Torah was lefnim, it was nichnas legufay mamish, which is like this, like Tosfos brings by Rabbeinu HaKadosh that the Torah should be nichnas l'seich meyav, right? So the different Torah should go nichnas l'seich oznav right away. And by Yehושע ben Xananya, it says he was even in the Beis HaKeser, he was everywhere. The kasha is, so why should we take away? I mean, this person who's isik b'Torah mi b'fnim, he's isik b'Torah inside, right? Why is it that he should lose this status of his learning at Torah b'tznius, that his terasa becomes mefursim, right? So why should it be taken away from him the mile of Talmud Torah b'tznius? So if you look in the Rambam Hilchos Talmud Torah per Gimel Halacha Yud Beis, it says as haloshon, Kal hayageya b'talmudai b'tzina machkim. Somebody who's mi'agea b'Torah b'tzina machkim, he becomes a chacham. Shenemar ve'estznuim chachma. The people that are tznuah, and they're shaykh to chachma. So we see that the Rambam is kaiveya, that the mile of Talmud Torah b'tzina is shaykh to the inyan of Yigiyah b'Torah. It's not just guys loy b'Torah b'tzina. Doesn't say that in the Rambam. The Rambam said he's mi'agea b'Torah b'tzina. Yeah? I mean, he works hard to understand. He doesn't just yeah. And, yeah. So really, the MS is that the way Torah is really supposed to be, meaning in the ultimate perfect world, let's talk about it in terms of what we, the nusach of how we talk in Unzer B'Smedrash, very stark that, let's say, by Luchas Rishonis, right? The first set of Luchas that Moshe Rabbeinu brought down from Har Sinai, Torah would have been forgotten, right? The Kabbalah Torah and the Mesiras Torah was so strong that nobody would ever have any questions. Every shtickle Torah would be automatically understood, right? And it would be so clear and it would be so gishmak, and everybody would always be masik the whole everything of Torah without any yigiyah whatsoever, right? That's So in an ideal world, that's really how the Torah is supposed to be, right? But, we don't live in such an ideal world. We live in a world where we're Luchas Shniyas people, and Luchas Shniyas means we need Yigiyah. We need a Melis to understand it. And it's talking about so clear, it's not so posh. Right? in the Gemara Moed Katan, where this Gemara comes from. So again, we're talking about that Reb Chia holds that loy merosh b'seisa dibarti. So he brings a pasuk, and the Gemara darshans over there that loy merosh b'seisa dibarti means that originally the ideal Torah is not to be betzina, it's not to be b'seisa, it's to be taka golim aforsim. Nor of us. There's a certain sneeze that the Torah requires now because we were in Zeichet to the Madrega of learning Torah with Mitazak Gilui. So the Gemara says that what are we talking about? But they were talking about the Yom Dekala. Where's Yom Dekala? So twice a year they would all gather together to learn Torah B'Rabbim. And steht in Brachos that the Gemara Brachos says like this: Yizayin Medbeis, that these are people Abirei Leiv, that they're very hardened hearts. So in fact, the Gemara, why do they have hardened hearts? Because they see Kvedah Shel Torah twice a year, and then they're not in a spell from it. So in fact, what was the Gevaldik Kvedah Shel Torah? Because it was the Eish Yardim Nashemayim by this Kala, by this drasha, this twice a year when they would have these Gevaldik drashas, when there was a big asifa and a big crowd. So then these people weren't moved by it. There was nothing exciting for them that there was Yard Eish Nashemayim on this crowd. So one of the ways, so in a non-ideal world, in the world that we're living in now, so the derech of Asagas HaTorah, of what we're talking about now, is taka through Amelis, taka through Yagiyah, and it has to be done b'tzina also. It can't be done, every now and then to have a Torah b'fahesya, a Gevaldig Torah b'fahesya. So then how's, we don't live in that ideal world where Torah can be b'fahesya, and we have to live in a world where Torah is going to be more b'tzina. But once a person is mazik Torah, once a person understands the Torah properly, then it could go back to its original surah and to the original mila of Pirsum and Gilui. So when a person is a Bal Madrega, then his Torah, that Torah is supposed to be in the original state of Pirsum and Gilui. So originally, the way the Torah is supposed to be is to be Pirsum and Gilui. Now, for whatever reason, we went down to Madrega, where Torah has to be learned B'tzina, and we have to be Miyageh in order to take the Torah out B'tzina, right?
Yeah.
So the Rambam says, before this, the Bris Krusa Shekol HaYageh B'Terasa V'Esamedrash Lev Meheru Shecheach. The Rambam says that there's a bris, that somebody who learns Torah, someone's Miyageh B'Torah in the Bismedrash, he doesn't forget. And anybody who's Miyageh B'Talmud B'Tzina Machkim, Shenemar V'Estunum Chachma. So these two milas of learning Torah in the Bismedrash and learning Torah B'Tzina are Shaykh by Yagiyah, and they both go together. So what's pshat in this? Right? What's pshat in these two things? So the Gemara says, Amakas, Tavyud, Mi oyev b'hamen loy tvua. There's a pasuk. Kol oyev l'lamed b'hamen. So Rashi says, Lidresh b'rabim.
What's hamen?
Masses, a lot of people. Like hamonam. So loy tvua. This person is going to gain a lot of Torah. He's going to have a lot of ideas of Torah. Rav Ashi Amar, Kol oyev l'lamed b'hamen loy tvua. Somebody who loves to learn, so then he's going to be gathering in all the Torah. He's going to have all the Yidis HaTorah. What does it mean when the pasuk says a sword is to those who are badim b'nayolu? So cherev al seineim shel talmidei chachamim sheyeshvim va'iskim b'Torah bad v'vad, that there's a sword on the haters of talmidei chachamim, that they sit in their Torah by themselves. V'lo yoed el Hashem et hapshim. They get silly. They're chaytim. The Gemara actually is a pasuk. So when a person is able to share his Torah with others, so then he's machkim. And when a person is not able to share his Torah with others, so then it's garim to tipshus. What's going to be when a person learns Torah b'tzina? L'chara, we're understanding that a person. How would you imagine? I would ask you this: somebody learns Torah b'tzina. How would you picture that? I don't know. A guy's hiding out in some attic or he's hiding out in some cellar, but that's not what it means. B'tzina means that he learns Torah with a certain tznius, with a certain seriousness. Tznius doesn't mean hiding in a closet. Tznius means with a certain seriousness that this is what he's supposed to be doing. Right? So somebody learns Torah b'tzina, so he has a bris crucial that he's going to be machim, and his Torah is going to become a force. But there's a very thin line between where a person is sitting and learning by himself, meaning bad babad, where he's going to become sanem shatam lechachamim. So this that he's learning b'tzina is not necessarily going to be he's not necessarily going to be betzina. He's not necessarily going to have a person who's learning by himself. Not necessarily has the madrega of betzina, and a person who's a betzina could technically mean that he's learning with other people also. It doesn't mean that he's just learning by himself. It just has to be with this midah of tznius, and he's miyageya. So then he's going to be able to chapti his madrega. There's a very fine line to the tzina and this. So I just want to end off with this, that maybe this is why Rabbi Yeshua was able to be that person to go be mefarsim. His Torah wasn't just mefarsim in the Bismedrash. His Torah was mefarsim everywhere, because he started off as Tznuim Chachma. He took the Torah very seriously to that point of where his mother was bringing him to the Bismedrash everywhere, and so that's the bracha that Rabbi Yeshua got of as Tznuim Chachma.